everybody, welcome to the Administrative Committee meeting Monday, March 9th. If you will stand with me for a brief prayer and our pledge, please. Heavenly Father, thank you for bringing us here safely so that we can do the work of the James Island Public Service District to the best of our abilities for all of our customers and as well as for everyone that works here that keeps this island moving along. Please keep in mind anyone going through hardships that you know in your heart what they need. Please always be there for them. Let them know that they are cared about, and we will send up our prayers to them as well. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Freedom of Information Act.
You're powered up.
Freedom of Information Act. In compliance with the Freedom of Information Act, notice of this meeting and its agenda were provided to all news media and persons requesting notification. Commissioner Clifford?
Here.
Commissioner Brown Crouch?
Here.
Commissioner Platt?
Here.
Commissioner Polson?
Here.
Commissioner Engelmann?
And Ms. Woolsey will be the ex officio at this meeting.
Commissioner Woolsey?
Here.
Madam Chair, I'm going to entertain a point of order.
Sure.
Just to say very briefly, that I respect the decision that's been made to not have all commissioners sit with us. But I think it's an unfortunate decision, and if there's no objection, I appreciate my objection being noted in minutes. Thank you.
Alright, first order that we're going to talk about is the retirement contribution proposals. As you know, when we had the proposed budget for the last 2 years, we are participating in an optional retirement program in addition to what's provided by the state, and we still want to offer a level of that back to our employees because we do appreciate everything that y'all do. And that, we're not, pulling the rug out from under you or anything like that. But there has to be some fine tuning because of the cost of everything going up, including health care. And there are several proposals that we were discussing. So what I'd like to see happen out of this committee is for us to discuss one and then bring it to the full committee or for the full commission for us to decide on how to best proceed forward and giving the credit due to those who have spent the majority of their working lives here and those who plan on doing that so that they would still find James Island Public Service District a place where they want to work for that long. So, would you help me go through this a little
Sure.
bit?
I have a presentation that I put together. Everything that's in the presentation was sent to you. I've just kind of put it in an order for everybody to look at. You don't need it? I would like to have this back, since it's not in stone, before the end of the meeting. These are just proposals for us to look at right now. But if you would go to the next slide. This is what we currently have. Our retiree health provision, we fund a portion of the employer cost for our retirees. And it is divided up between people that were hired before 2008, May 2nd of 2008, and people that were hired after May 2nd, 2008. And that date was selected because of the change the state made in the way that they funded the retirees. In the past, we've always mirrored what the state does. There's not anything that I could find in the minutes. I did find where we adopted the um, the health insurance plan. And I talked with PIBA representatives, and they said that optional employer, there's always been optional employers with the plan. So we always have the option of funding it or not funding it. We adopted the health insurance plan in 1993 and have had this plan, except for I'm not sure what it was prior to 2008, but this is what it is as of right now. Someone with less than 15 years that was hired after 2008, they get zero funding. Okay, someone with 15 or more years but less than 25 years gets 50% funding. And someone with, and this is on the current retiree policy in the green, this right here. Anyone with 25 years or more hired after 2008 gets 100% funding. That's the employer portion of funding. All the retirees pay the employee portion. So the state dictates that this is the employer's portion, this is the employee portion. We get to decide whether we want to pay some of it or all of it or none of it. So this is the present plan. Next slide.
Let me clarify this. So right now, as of what we've been doing this past few years, we only pay 100% if they got more than 25 years of service.
If they were hired after May 2008. They were hired before May 2008 and they have 10 years of service, then we fully fund the employer portion.
Oh, okay.
Because basically we've got qualifying date here, the years of service in order to qualify, the provisions category, whether they're funded or non-funded, and then whether the dependents are funded or non-funded. And then the cost to the retiree, and then the cost to James Island PSD.
Help me, now I've been here for almost 25 years. And when I came here, it seemed like we were funding 100% for everybody. I don't recall, after 208, this information that's written here. It seemed to me that one of the benefit was everybody's getting 100%.
Let me say that's my recollection as well.
So
If that were the case, I'm 60, and I will have 5 years of service with the state at the end of this year. And if what you're saying is the case, then anyone qualified for retiree health would be funded? Fully funded?
What
So
I'm
after 3 years of service here, I could get fully funded?
That's a good plan, doesn't it?
That's a great plan.
what I'm saying, to my recollection, I could be wrong. It seemed to me that one of the benefits. Now, if that has changed, then somebody needs to tell me about it. Mr. Platt, you've been here.
Yeah, and I can swear to it, but again, it's just a general recollection of the emphasis being on,
It's,
a benefit, a promised benefit.
I
yes.
mean, anyone with 10 or more years, I think, I don't know, because I wasn't here,
Okay,
but
but
I
that was here.
believe that we have mirrored the state's design. and we have funded what the state funds. And so this is what the state does as well, right here. So this is what we do. And I was told by Mr. Wise that we mirror what the state does.
I don't believe a thing Mr. Ross
I'm just,
said.
I know, but I'm just saying.
I find it hard to believe that we would fully fund somebody's retirement after only a few years.
What
And
I'm
that's
saying,
what
it
she's
seems
saying
to me
100%
that
funding,
part
that's-
of the
that's-
packet, of getting people to be hired here was, our benefits. The benefit was, now, if things have changed, and Mr. Platt, you've been around longer than me, but it seemed to me that that was the,
My memory's no better than yours, but I seem, my notion is that, that's accurate, but, the minutes might show otherwise.
Well, I, just another point, when I started, Malvina Turner, she's been here 20 years, she explained it this way to me. So, she's been in HR for 20 years here, almost 20 years, and this is her understanding of how it works. And she's an employee and it affects her directly, so if it wasn't correct, I'm sure she would have told me.
I'm just telling you from my recollection.
Right.
When, the benefit was one of the key things for people coming here,
Right.
working.
And this is a
Because they
good
weren't
benefit.
paying nothing, but the benefits was outstanding. And I think,
We're still paying their regular health insurance. This is just after retirement.
I am talking about what was presented. The benefits here, people were coming here because mostly we had excellent benefits, okay? Now, if that has changed, somebody tell me.
It hasn't changed, it's exactly like it is, you just weren't
Kathy,
aware of
you
it.
just got here. I've been here for a long
I
time.
think you were just misinformed about it. I mean, what you're saying is that a person could work here one day and get 100%.
What
No, I
I'm,
think what you're saying is the person can stay here until they retire, regardless of when they come, they would get 100%. I think there's a matter.
yes,
But what if she retires in 4 years, does she get 100%? Or 5 years?
all I'm talking about what was. Now, if things have changed, then so be it.
This is
But
the,
the benefits, people came here because of the benefits.
This is a
and they
good
still do.
benefit.
Um,
This is a good benefit.
they came because of the retirement benefit.
And I've read the employee manual. It just says we'll vote on it every year. It doesn't say we get 100%, and everybody's read that. Have y'all ever read the employee manual? It's the last paragraph.
I'm not.
Right, and it basically says that you guys have the right to make amendments to it on an annual basis.
We have a right, but all I'm talking about in the years, before you guys got here, this was, the benefits and retirement benefits. I'm sorry,
Just
I
a
rest my case.
one aspect of it, I think you said that, an entity like the James Arnold Public Service District, has a prerogative of how much of its own contribution that the employee or retiree would be required to pay. But now, are you sure that's the legislative intent?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, I've read the legislation. Because when I asked, PIVA, it took her a long time to get back to me, and I went in and looked up optional employer, and, it's been on the books since it was like 1978 or something.
Okay.
This plan is a rich plan. Not very many places pay anything because of the OPEB liability, which is why we're looking at all this. I went over this briefly with y'all a few months back. When I was talking to the actuary, she sent me this, and basically it gives us an idea of where the majority of the cost for the OPEB liability is. And if you look at it, you can see that active accrued liability, those are, active employees. And our liabilities are for pre-Medicare, member, pre-Medicare spouse, Medicare eligible, and Medicare spouse. And then the totals. And it's active and inactive liabilities. And if you see that the spouse liabilities are significant, and that's spouse or dependent. I just put spouse on there for brevity. Those are some significant areas where cost is a factor. And then the Medicare eligible is a big, huge portion of it, being 2.6 million. So what I did, if you go to the next page, is kind of summarize the liabilities for you. Where are the biggest costs? And the biggest costs are the active accrued liability from pre-Medicare and Medicare eligible members, as well as the inactive Medicare eligible members.
Would you define inactive and active for me?
Active is the active employees, inactive is the retirees. So, and then, so that comes out to 4,000,008 of the 8 million rounded up that we have in OPEB liability. And so after looking at this and speaking with the actuary and finding out a little bit more about what other people have done and how they have reduced their liability, this is the proposal, the next slide, that I have come up with. And this still honors the people hired before 2008. And that protects a lot of our long-term employees that have given many years of service to us. And it fully funds them, and it fully funds their dependents. Basically, it doesn't change for that group. My proposal is that people that were hired on or after 2008 would have to have 20 years of service to be fully funded. And the dependent coverage is eliminated. And so the cost to the employee is the employee portion, and if they have a dependent, they have to pay the dependent coverage. Now, what I did for the employee is I looked at that, and basically because they don't know what healthcare costs are going to be year after year after year, they estimate the inflation. And so that's estimated in our OPEB liability. So I put a flat amount on here of $400 that we would fund Medicare eligible employees. And that limits our liability. It's still a generous amount, but it limits our liability over the years. And we can get a estimation of the cost of this. And if it gets to the point where our Medicare supplement through PIVA is, $1,000 or $1,200, we might want to look at upping that provision. And we can do that, and we can just get an estimate of what would it cost us. But this is a way, because right now there's about $47 difference between what is being funded and the $400 provision. So it won't affect people as heavily as it sounds like it would. Now, in order to encourage people to get their own Medicare supplemental plan, which is much less expensive than what PIVA offers. The PIVA Medicare supplemental plan is equivalent to the insurance for our employees each month. So, you can go out in the market and get, if you're a fairly healthy person, and get a Medicare supplemental plan for $180. So, that is, as the cost of our Medicare supplemental plan goes up, that $400 not changing would encourage people to go out into the market and get something less expensive. Because as of right now, they won't have to pay $180, but as it goes up, they will. So it won't affect people until later on down the line, maybe out to 5 years or 3 to 5 years before it significantly impacts you so much that you would want to go and look at the market. And that's the whole idea of healthcare, is to educate the employee on the consumerism and encourage them to make the best choice for themselves. So that is my proposal to send to our actuary to do a projection. And any questions about this so far?
Well, my only comment is that I wanted to make sure that when something has to change, you want it to have minimal impact on people that make it happen.
Right.
And the people who've dedicated the majority of their lives to here. I wanted that grandfathered in some way that doesn't change. And
And
that this looks like a very progressive, plan, because then it's not even up to 25 years. I mean, 20 is a,
Right.
that way,
Right, for
25
some of the
years.
people that maybe are hired after 2008, so, but they're still here, they've been here 12 years. So what's the probability that they'll be here another 8 years? It's pretty high. I looked at the ages of the people that were hired after 2008 that have a large amount of service here, and it seems very fair. And it's a way to reduce our liability, which then reduces our ADEC, which is the annual amount we have to pay in to fund it. But it completely covers all of the current retirees and anybody hired before 2008. So their plan stays what it is as it's stated on the first page. And then anyone after 2008, it affects.
I don't understand why we're protecting those employees but not the other ones. I think if you're gonna make some employees take a hit, you should make them all take a hit. And another thing, going from 25 down to 20, I don't think that's gonna save us any money. I don't understand that. But, so it's been 12 years since 2008, am I right?
Yes.
So how many people are we talking about right there? Do you have any idea? Is it 10, 15, half our employees?
Well, there's 31 that were hired prior to 2008 on the books right now.
I don't think we promised them anything, and I think a lot of other companies have gone back. And I just don't feel like, okay, we're giving these, not changing their benefit, but we're changing other people's benefits. If you're gonna change benefits and cut people, you should do everybody across the board. And just saying, oh, we're grandfathering them in, we don't have to grandfather them in, we don't have to, do this. And I don't see this scenario 5, people, are we gonna triple everybody's property tax to pay for all this? I mean, is that
Well, the
what it's
whole
gonna-
idea is to reduce our liability.
Yeah.
Right now, we're supposed to fund $700,000 a year
Yeah,
into OPEB.
and you haven't run this scenario by the actuary, so we don't know if we're saving money or not.
No, she has,
Yeah.
because
Well,
it's
I've-
saying that they're not gonna have the information ready for about 4 to 5 weeks. So we just,
You've
They-
already sent it to her.
Yes, I have given it to her. I gave it to her along with scenario 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, okay? And this one seemed like the fairest and one that would make an impact on the liability, especially Now, I mean, the Medicare eligibility and the Medicare supplemental plan, the $400 is a pretty generous,
It does sound generous, because you're saying you could go out on the market, and maybe get something for $180, that 400 sounds too high to me.
well,
If you wanna encourage them to go out on the market, you should cut that, seems like to me. And like you said, we don't even have to give any of that, right? Yet we're giving them $400 a month, how much is that
this,
gonna cost?
this is just a proposal.
They picked 400 because you don't know what tomorrow's gonna do. I mean, my health insurance was $380 and now it's $580 and I'm on no medicine. And I'm a private pay, so, yeah, I have a hard time relating to anybody paying for anything, for me, actually. But they picked that number because the only thing my health insurance has done is gone up.
Well, mine has been raised some, but I am on Medicare, and, you know, and I have a great deal of health issues and medications, 11 different types, and, yeah, you know, surgeries and things, so.
So that's how they picked the 400.
Yeah, well, I'm saying, but mine's actually, right under 2 a month, so that's why I think, I do agree that 4 is a little high, just being someone who's on Medicare and is on a high amount of medicine and surgical procedures, that is a little high.
Currently, but that's why they
So they already
projected
get
4.
Medicare, and you give them, we just send them a check for $400 a month, what's the story?
No, we pay the Medicare supplement that's billed by PIVA
Mhm.
to us.
Okay, but what if they go out and get something private that's less, do we just pay that or give them the difference?
If they were to do that, then they would no longer be participating in the plan. But they could always come back on it.
So we only give them the 400 if they're on the Medicare Part B or whatever it is.
Per this
But
proposal.
if they go out and get some private one, then we're not giving them anything? Well, I don't know how that's gonna encourage them to do that. If you got somebody paying for it, and why would you go out and pay for it on your own?
Well, if they're gonna have to pay the employee cost, which will be about $210.
Okay.
And as the inflationary and the trend for increases in health insurance continue, once it gets to where they have to pay more than $200 or $300, they're gonna start looking at other options, cause they may not, if they can find out that they can get a plan for $180 or $250 and they're having to pay $300 out of their pocket, they may do that. Now, 400 is a number that was proposed, that's not set in stone, that's just so that we can start the conversation and decide. But we will have to have all of this defined in order for the actuary to estimate what our ADAC and OPEB liability would be. And that is on the next page.
So one big saving on here is that we're not paying the dependent funding.
Right,
That's one big saving.
right.
And, is the age limit on dependent, not spouses, but children, is that
26,
26 still? Okay, good Lord.
yeah. That was changed with the Affordable Care Act.
But could we set dependent at 18, I mean, can we decide what that?
No,
Okay.
no, PIVA decides the design of the plan,
Mhm.
and we can't vary from that.
Okay.
We just can decide on the funding. That's the only thing that we can change.
I really, feel like if we're cutting current employees, their dependent funding, that we should cut the ones hired before too. Because, like I said, I think it's just sort of unfair that you're cutting one group of employees' insurance, but you're not cutting one just because they were here first. That just doesn't seem fair. And I
It
really
speaks to
think,
something to be here first. I mean, not a lot of people have the longevity career to be in one place for 20
hopefully
years.
these other people will stick around too.
12 years that's pretty long period of time.
Yeah, well, they've already been here 12 years.
Yeah.
How many have already retired at 10?
We have about 8 that have between 10 and 15 years
And,
that are getting fully funded.
yeah, and we're paying for their dependents too. And if we're gonna cut current hired today, if you're not gonna give them dependent, I think it's only fair that you cut these people too. And we don't have to give their dependents, we're just doing it because we're nice. And I feel like, as a taxpayer,
Well, one of the reasons that I picked the 2008 threshold is because it was already defined in the plan. And so it's already set as a cutoff date to have changes that were made. And the 2008 and prior covers the existing retirees, and they don't have to have any change to their plan because they are hired before 2008.
but we can change their plan.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just feel like as a taxpayer, and I've talked to some stuff, what do you think about, we're paying the children and spouses insurance too of retirees, and they're like, am I paying for that? Yeah, well, you're paying for that. I feel like, is this fair to the taxpayer? And taxpayers like you and me, nobody's paying for my kid.
Well, all of this, anybody that's employed by the state is doing it,
Yeah. Well, that's one employer.
and that's our tax dollars too.
I know, but they have other resources that the PSD does not have.
Right, oh yeah, I'm just saying,
We're just talking
we're not the
property
only ones
tax
doing
here.
it.
And you talk property tax, people complain about that one.
But then you even brought out that it can be changed yearly. You can see what the trends are instead of just having a policy in place for however many years and then all of a sudden trying to upheave it. We've got the option to redo it.
We do, and I just feel like paying for the dependents, fully funding the dependents, I'd like to see that knocked down to at least 50% of funding for the dependents. Because I just feel like they didn't work for the PSD, why should the public pay for their insurance? That's, as a taxpayer, I'm talking as a taxpayer here. I'm trying to be the devil's advocate.
And I'll be the devil's advocate with
Yeah.
you. I'll talk to you from the employee side. The employees that are here, that have been here since, all of them, they all, feel as though they've worked, this was the benefit when they started, and it's the benefit that they should keep. And to change it to where anyone that's hired as of July 1, 2020 doesn't affect our OPEB. So that's why there's a proposed change for you to look at. It seemed fair to use the 2008 cutoff because it was already established, and it protected the current retirees, which I think is the right thing to do, because they're already retired and they've already
But you have
gotten their
stated that
benefit.
there's been no ruling by this commission or anything written saying that we promised these people anything. And I'm just going by what I've read in the
Right.
employee manual, says we can change it anytime.
Absolutely.
And it happens to people all the time. The benefits
Yes.
get cut, the company isn't doing well. Earth Fair goes under, those people lost their retirement right there.
Right.
So, yeah, in a perfect world, we all love to have all this money and be retired and live these golden years, but, who can afford that? We'll be like Venezuela. And, but I feel like one thing I'd like to see reduced is the fully funding. We can cut it down of the hired before 2008 of the dependents. I feel like that is a place that we should cut. I don't even know how many of these people have dependents anymore. It might not affect hardly anybody.
It does affect a lot of people that are currently retired. And we have a lot of employees that were hired before 2008 that do have non-working spouses, and they don't have any
Well, that's a nice world,
other,
isn't it?
they don't have any other way to insure other than to go out and get private insurance.
But that's why we're doing this, we're going over these scenarios, we're not making the decision tonight, but now you see that we have 5 different scenarios that are proposed. So if we can get to, come up with something that that is going to be pleasing to most everyone, because you're not gonna please everybody, that's the given,
Right.
okay? So, but that's why this is being brought up. It was brought up the first time with Mr. Hancock during the 18-19 budget discussion, and then it was brought up again for the 19-20, and it's being brought up again, so, and the only thing I see is that bottom line keeps going up and up and up and up. So you have to, you know, you have to figure out how we're gonna do this, so that's what this was. This is part of the education process, so that we don't have these hour and 15-minute discussions at full commission level. We get the knowledge now, we go home, we do our homework, we talk to people, and we find out what the impact's gonna be and try to come up with something.
Now, if you look at the very first, will you go back one? 2, 3, there you go. And that's the current one, they might be, no, back. There you go. Right here, this one is changing it for 2024. That allows everyone that is hired in 2008 would have 15 years service. Not everybody, but several of them. And it also was what Rainey suggested, that we give more than a year notice to everybody if we're going to significantly change the plan. Because Medicare has open enrollment once a year, so they would have to do it then. And B, we've got open enrollment for our employees in October, and that would give them time to look at it and say, okay, I can, we can, you're on my plan, you need to go on your own plan, something like that. But it doesn't go into effect until 2024 in this scenario. So really, the main change is the dependent coverage and reducing it to anyone with less than 20 years of service is not funded.
As Marta, I am not happy with what I'm hearing. I just want you guys to know, I am not happy at all. People work, they look forward to retirement, health insurance, that is, it's not what, I just don't like what I'm hearing.
Inez, I think you're not gonna like
That
when
is my
your
opinion, I don't like it.
constituents
I
raise
don't like
Cain about their property taxes being raised to pay for some
like it.
dependents.
So, people work and,
Not
there's a
everybody in this
benefit.
country gets
There
it.
is a benefit. And,
It'd be great if we could give them all lots of money, but we can't afford it. We cannot afford it.
this is not a situation, I am not happy with
Well, I
that
hate doing
is
it
just
too.
my opinion, I am not happy.
Here's a question, Teresa. Not clear to me that you said it, so please say it again. And I understand we have to make some kind of adjustment. It's a real challenge, but can more of adjustment be made with new hires as of tomorrow, as of July 1st?
It won't affect your OPEB liability. That is what the actuaries told me. If we just say, going forward, it's not funded, which basically this is saying as of July 1, that's the change. But it will not affect that $8 million. Because that $8 million is the existing people on the plan right now.
Well, aside from that, would it be prudent for the commission to consider an adjustment for new hires as of now or as of July 1st and date? aside from the liability we already have,
Right.
would it be prudent?
Well, I
to-
mean, if we don't do anything, changing it to where it's not funded as a, but I mean, this doesn't say you're not funded. Someone that was hired in 2024, and it's 20 years of service, will be funded for this plan. So in 2044, if they're ready to retire, then they will get the Medicare. They're fully funded for the employer portion until they have Medicare eligible. Which most people don't retire until they're Medicare eligible anyway, or very close to it. Some do, but not that many. So that is why it's written that way. And then it eliminates the dependent coverage completely. And the cost to the employee is 100% of the employee portion and 100% of the dependent portion.
Didn't it state like 26 years and we dropped down to 20?
It's 25.
And why did we drop down to 20? We need to keep that at 25.
It's just the proposal that it
Yeah.
put together.
Well, my opinion is we need to keep it, we're
Consistent.
currently, right now, you're saying 25, and you want us to drop down to 20, that's not saving us any money, we need to keep it at 25. Or you can-
I suggested dropping it down to 20 because to make that a more livable number. That was my suggestion.
It might be more livable, but can we afford it? And why are we doing a more gracious benefit than the state? I think,
We don't,
well, I think keeping it at 25 is what we should do, not
Oh,
dropping
I
it at
got you.
20. I mean, the state is 25, we should keep it at 25.
And then make notes of everything that you want to
Yeah.
see happen, and then that way, when we talk about it again, we can see how those get played out with the cost-saving efforts, that that's what we're going off of right now. So,
Another thing
when
is,
all said and done, we're in the tank for 8 million across the board for the next
Yeah,
year.
we're
So
talking-
that's
unless we change the current plan.
okay.
another thing is, like, let's say the dependent coverage. Not doing that, no, maybe not that. I was thinking that we could, to pay for their Medicaid Part B or whatever it is, that we can say, okay, we'll start taking that money out of their, another deduction from their payroll. to pay
No,
for it.
there's no deduction because they're retired.
I'm talking about current employees, to
Current
pay for
employees.
their future insurance. Instead of us, that $400 we wanna be nice and give them, make them pay for that. Right now, while they're working, we take out a few dollars each month and use that money to pay that $400.
I would have to get with Brittany on that to see if we could do that. That's creating a health savings account,
Yes.
and we don't have a high deductible plan, so I'm not sure that that would be in line with
Let's look at that.
IRS.
I mean, I've talked to other people and they say, get the employees to fund this. If they want that money when they retire, take it out of their paycheck and put it in a fund to pay for that $400 thing. I think we could do something like that, run it by her and see if we can come up with something like that. And there might be something to, no, I want my money now and,
But well, I guess the main thing that I was hoping to get tonight would be, let's get an estimate on how much this will save us. And that's the cost evaluation, that's that slide you were at.
so we have to decide tonight how much money we're gonna spend on this.
No, but
actuary.
it's 4 to 6 weeks to get evaluation, and that would put us into, late April or early May, making a decision on the, policy to affect the, funding that we have to do annually, and that would affect the budget. So, the sooner we can get evaluation to see what it will cost us, the sooner we could make a decision on, because I mean, we could send this proposal in and see what kind of savings it is for us. And then look at it and say, well, it's obvious that it's not gonna save us enough money to where we have reduce our liability, ADAC annual funding enough for us to afford. So we'll have to go back and change it, but, that was my hope for tonight, that we would pick this
So then
in
even
some
if,
form or fashion of it.
if the adjustment was to be made back to 25 to keep in line with the state regulatory thing is so stringent
Yeah,
on
we
the
can change-
25, what if we just change that just to get some numbers to look at?
Right,
Because I think a lot of it too is digesting the difference between the supplementary coverage, not, and getting it clearly defined. The state's doing this, we're doing this, you have the option of doing that, but to see it across the board, cause yeah, we got one
Right.
pie and we got many pieces that need to be cut up, and we gotta figure out how to do that.
Do we make motions and vote on things in the committee? I would, my two suggestions on if we bring it down really far, we can always bring it back up.
right.
But I would say what we should send to Rennie is the 25-year and only 50%. I still have a problem with you're cutting one group of employees and not the other. And doing 50% funding on the dependent, on the hired before 2008 group, instead of fully funding their thing. Now, we will give them a couple of years to adjust to this, say this will occur 2 years down the road.
Right.
So they can figure this out, maybe kick the kid out of the house or whatever. Or maybe the kid will age out, but,
Well, it's mainly spouses that are dependent.
yeah. I can tell you, I've had many, many friends, their husbands died, they've been retired, the husband dies, and she has to go back to work. I mean, and I.
Yeah, but a lot of people also have handicapped children and handicapped people that need.
Well, we do have a
additional
survivor
help,
benefit,
too,
but they
so.
have to pay the whole cost.
Well,
If one of our employees dies, the survivor has to pay the whole cost of the coverage, employer and employee.
that's my proposal, take that dependent down to 50%. We're paying 50% of their insurance, right? Instead of 100%. And then 25 years on current. And let's give that to her and see what,
And it's Beth Wright at Kavanaugh McDonald.
Oh, okay.
that we're
Whoever
sending
your-
it to.
person who does this number, or, I don't know how y'all feel about that, but,
I don't have a problem with the 25 years, but I think we needed to go a little more in the discussion about,
Go gently.
yeah, whacking that in half.
well, you wanna just cover 75%. I mean, you've got this one group employer, you're not paying anything, and your other one, you're paying 100%. I think you oughta,
I think that
If one get-
75% certainly sounds better than 50 and
Mhm.
feels to me a great deal more. 50, I agree with Ms. Clifford, that's a bit low, in my opinion, but.
Are we thinking about, the employee? You know, we have some people here who doesn't make $100,000 a year.
there's not too many of them.
I mean, we got people here, you know, I mean, we have to stop and put ourselves in some of these people's place.
Absolutely.
I'm having a real hard time, I'll tell you. I'm just not happy with nothing I hear tonight. I'm having a hard time because there are people here who don't make a whole lot of money. And, you know, health insurance is very, very costly. We got to think in terms of people who doesn't make a lot of money. And I'm having a hard time, that's all I want to tell you.
Oh,
I'm
yes.
having a hard time. I live on retirement.
All right, I make $13 an hour, my employer gives me nothing. I get $13 an hour, and they take out taxes. If my husband's died, I'm screwed. I don't have anything. And yet, you want me to vote for people to get something much better, this golden parachute that I don't get.
That is
How many of your
exact-
constituents
that
are in the same
exactly-
boat I am?
exactly
We would love to give y'all all sorts of
my
wonderful stuff, but we can't
We
afford
have
it.
people
I think the whole,
aren't
I'm
making
sorry,
a whole
I'm
lot of
sorry.
money. We got to think in terms, we have poor people working at this
That's why we're
district.
trying to find a balance between what we can do that's
When you
correct.
have nothing from nothing leaves nothing.
You have $8 million? We have to make a change.
Yeah, we don't
I'd
have.
say up to the 25 years,
I'm just telling you my feeling.
we'll go back to the state standard of 25. Would that sound okay? Cause at least let's get her to run the numbers somehow, we gotta see where we're at to see where we're going.
That's
I
what they're
think
currently,
it's
25 is what they currently have. So what are we taking away? Nothing. It's what we currently get.
They have
My biggest concern is with the pivot coverage, as Lisa pointed out, many of the retirees and maybe soon-to-be retirees, they do have non-working spouses, and getting back to what Commissioner Markosh said initially, there's like a commitment, a sacred commitment we made to them when they
None
came
of that's
aboard.
changing. That part doesn't change for them, that's why everything is structured up until a point. Whenever it gets to, 2024 is when it would be enacted, correct?
Okay, maybe I'm misreading it. With the current,
This first block at the top.
What a luxury to have a non-working spouse. I wish
That's
my
the current-
husband had one
that's
of
the
those.
current.
It'd be me.
You have to go to the proposal slide.
I grew up watching Fathers Knows Best and Leave It to Beaver. The mom was home. Dick Van Dyke said the mom was at home. That's not the real world anymore.
I think that what we have to keep in mind as we're looking at how we're gonna change, and if we're gonna, whether it's how or if or when we're gonna change, we have to keep in mind that this liability is only gonna get bigger unless we decide we're going to fund and we're gonna put $700,000 a year in it. Otherwise, it's just gonna get exponentially bigger.
Eugene, if we don't change this, you're gonna have to vote to increase people's taxes, and that's gonna hurt poor people too. That's gonna hurt people too.
I think another thing we need to keep in mind is that this year we're paying almost 16% of the employees' salary to retirement, not retirement health, to retirement. And that's gonna go up every year until 2024, it'll be, I think, or 23, it'll be 20% of their salary. So that's a big liability that we have no control over. Have no control over that retirement.
So we're already looking at paying more than that 8 million right now. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I'm talking about retiree, retirement, state retirement and retiree health
The
funding.
money that the state takes out,
The state is taking 9% out of everybody's check, but the district is paying 15.6 right now for everybody's. And that's gonna go up every year at 1% until it gets to 20, and they haven't put a schedule together for after that yet. The state hasn't. So unless the market rebounds and they invested wonderfully and they make a lot of money on their investments, that probably will stay the same or get bigger.
How much did the market drop today?
Right. But that's looking at the big picture and the entire viability and financial health of the district. To look at it from the employee perspective, you have to do both, you have to balance it, and that's kind of where I was coming from with this proposal, was to look at it from, let's save the district some money, but at the same time, let's keep in mind the obligation that we made to people years ago, and how we're gonna meet that commitment, and how we have to change that commitment going forward. And as the auditor said, you know, he basically was Chicken Little, and, you know, the
Sky's falling.
sky's falling. And in a lot of ways it's true, but at the same time, there's only, I don't know, there's no other PSDs or anything that have funded this fully. Now, Somerville Water told me that they were very close to having it fully funded. But, you know, so everybody's in this boat.
So we're very generous PSD. And,
Well, I would like to at least get a consensus of the committee members to let her get the figures from the actuary so that you can see if there's gonna be any cost saving in here and, you know, move it back up to 25 since that's the only change that's out of sync with what the state mandates, you know, because, you know, you're gonna catch flack if you go down and catch flack if you go up. You might as well just leave it where it's at.
Mr. Hancock said people were mad at him for what they did, but they had to do it. I still would keep the dependent at 50%. I mean, if you're 22 or 23 years old, you should have a job and be helping to pay for some of your insurance.
Well, like I said, most of it is.
And if you're
Would
handicapped,
you
you get social, what is it, SSI money?
Yeah,
What does
SSI.
handicapped people get? Yeah.
Would
So I
you
wouldn't worry about
ask
the handicapped people.
Kavanaugh McDonald if, could they do it both ways? Could they do it at 150 just so that they could?
Well, this
what
is
would it
this is the schedule of the costs that it would be. This is one scenario cost.
Yeah.
And the ADAC for 1 year, them to estimate the changes, which we know there's no reason to do that because our proposal really doesn't affect anything other than the Medicare eligible spouse. Is $2,500. Providing the ADAC for 10 years is $4,000. And providing the ADAC for 20 years is $4,750. Which Beth told me that if we do 20 years, we're gonna get 10 and 1 as well. So they'll project all that out for us, for that one cost. Now, if we wanna get the GASB, so right now it's
Could
like,
you explain what those things stand for?
yeah, the ADAC is the annual funding, and the GASB, TOL, that's the generally accepted,
accounting standard.
yeah, it's the rule that's put this money on the books under our assets and liabilities. But right now, it's just under 8 million. So if we wanna know what the future liability and how what this plan and design changes the future liability, we would need to include that as well. So for 20 years for both is $7,250.
So we gotta decide to spend this money right now tonight.
I mean, unless you don't wanna make any changes to what the annual, I mean, I don't think we're budgeted for,
Well, we can make a
700,000.
recommendation, but then the overall,
it's gotta be voted on by the.
by the full commission.
We don't have this already in the budget somewhere. That's not, we've already spent a lot of money. I think we'll like still, I know y'all wanna hear, cut that dependent down, we can always bring it back up. We gotta, if we're gonna get her to do all this math, take it down, and then we can always say, well, maybe that was too much, 50%, let's go back up. But I'd say do it at 50% funding for the dependent. I mean, we're not saying this is what we're doing. I mean, we just want the actuary to look to see how much money we're saving.
Right.
I agree, that could be.
We're not making a policy right here saying we're gonna cut these children off by
Right.
50%. We're just saying, let the actuary look at that number, and then we can go up or down on that number. Am I right?
Yes, ma'am.
So I think what she's asking us, we wanna make a recommendation to send this to the actuary. I feel like we should keep it at 50% and 25 years, everything else the same, and send that to actuary. And we might as well go for the $7,000 one, because we're gonna need those numbers.
Right, cause the 20 years takes us past 2036.
Yeah. I mean, don't y'all feel, I know that's a lot of money, boy, I wish one of my children was an actuary,
Right.
or something, but,
Yeah, but I'm not that 50%, if we're gonna have to pay her to do a comparison, and won't we just get the one that's been submitted, we cut it in half, and we're kinda there.
Well, one of the things that I can tell you is I won't be able to get from her the same breakdown that we got for the valuation for 2017's liability.
If we alter
The
what,
4 million, we won't be able to get that from
Right.
this. We won't know what components of it cost what, we'll just get the totals.
Like I said, I feel like we really need to look at, really trying to cut this, see where we're looking at.
Get clarification though on definitive coverage, I think this is like address it, when I look at the bottom column, current, and the bottom, here, the proposal scenario 5, the difference in the first column, 25 or more years, 20 or more years. Well, I think operative phrase there, or more, conceivably someone, could have at least 25 years, and currently, someone with 25 years, the dependent coverage, the district pays 100% of our portion, but in the proposal, the employer would pay the total cost 100% of theirs as well as the district, right? Well, isn't that a drastic change?
Yeah, it is a big change, yes, sir.
Okay.
So, why don't you just go around and say 50% or 75%, we'll just, and then we need to look at and say, do we wanna go with the $6,000 or the $7,000?
but then that decision still ultimately lies with the full commission.
Well, we have to make a recommendation. And so, just kinda do a consensus here, and then see, then we'll go and say, this is what we kinda came up with, right?
I'm sure, it'll be ideal, of course, for the committee to make a recommendation, but it's not absolutely required. Perhaps it could be referred to the full commission without a specific recommendation, with additional input from the commissioners who are not a part of this committee, as well as time for us to process what we've heard tonight.
Well, if that can happen between now and our next full commission meeting, the distribution of the previous scenarios, I believe, have been distributed to all commissioners up to 4, I think. But
I think we did 3 and 4.
3 and 4. Okay.
No, they weren't. We did the administrative committee meeting last time, and I didn't distribute it because,
I don't
we
think I
just
saw
didn't
it.
get time to.
Okay, well then we.
But those, the fourth one was the one that you proposed, was the 25%, 50%, 75, and 100. And that one actually makes the plan richer than it is now. So that one was like, you don't wanna get the valuation on that because it'll be more than a year. Keeping the employee dependent coverage the same for anyone with 25 years of service is, I mean, there's no reason, if you just leave that the same, and, then the only thing you'll really be changing is funding the employee, dependent coverage for anybody before 2008 to 50% of 700. So, I mean, that's only right now, $788,000 of liability stuff, the dependent coverage. For pre-Medicare, and then 1.1 million for post or Medicare eligible. So it's right at about 3 million if you affect the spouse. Just looking at it, just my own math and logic, looking at it, that's what I see. When I talked with Beth Wright at Cabot on the Bell, she said that a lot of companies that have had to make these changes have eliminated the dependent funding. And they have gone to the ones that have significantly affected it have gone to a stipend for the Medicare eligible, like we've got. The $400. My first proposal was $300, and that would probably encourage more people to look into the market for coverage.
I just feel like what we're looking at here today, people, this ain't gonna cut very much. And maybe some, but I think we're gonna have to do some real belt tightening. And, you know, I'm sorry, but it is what it is.
Wait a minute, didn't we have, excuse me, didn't we have a fund that we used to put money into, what happened to that fund?
What is
we
it,
had?
$200,000? That ain't 8 million.
No, we had a fund that, every year, we used to put a certain amount of money for, you remember? Did
Yeah.
you-
We started that in it was proposed in 2018, and it started with the fiscal year 18-19, and we funded 100,000.
100, right,
And then this year, I think we put
368.
368,000.
So we're not even close to 1 million.
but that was a fund that we started, we put it, correct, and
It's
to
the
a,
ADAC funding that we are required to do.
And we're way behind. That's what Mr. Hancock said.
Well,
We are
I
way
mean,
behind.
basically, unless we can fund $700,000 a year towards ADAC,
So what do we have in that right now? 200 and 300?
360,000.
So we have
No,
365,000.
468. I
468,
have to look and make sure.
less than $500,000. And we need how much?
Almost 8 million.
And we need 8 million. That fund is not enough money in that fund.
but, I know, but, we started that fund for a reason.
Because it was required.
We should have
by-
started that fund 30
Right.
years ago.
by gas.
Yeah. It was too little too late, that fund. I feel like we're sending this to the actuary and we're not cutting enough. That's my general feeling about this. Mrs. Scrooge over here, I know what y'all think. But
Well, so then the only thing, is everybody okay if we go back to the 25 instead of 20 years?
25, I'm good with
Yes.
that. I'm good with that.
Okay, so we got that. So now the only thing up for debate is the coverage of the spousal coverage.
For anybody hired before 2008, everybody else is paying for it themselves, per this proposal.
You've already told some employees they're not getting it, but you're told other employees you're getting 100%. I just think that's unfair.
50%,
Yeah.
not the 250. It's unfortunate that we have to make things.
Is it every
We're
month?
giving them a couple of years to get ready for this, so.
12 years
I
is
know.
also a long time though, so that's, I mean, so, you know, it's, I mean, in 2008, at 12 years, so it's, I mean, you know, anyone before that would be, you know, maybe about 12 years or less. So I think that having to, you know, go from 100% to 50%, but we're still giving them something, whereas the others, nothing.
Well, one of the things we need to look at is, that, half of our employees are firemen, and they, for them to work 25 years is a stretch, because if they started at 20, and they're still fighting fires at 55, I mean, we have it, but it's expecting a lot from that employee. And that's one of the reasons I thought the 20 years was a good idea, because I think that might also,
I mean, we could
the
put them
firemen
in a
would look at
different-
that and say, well, gosh, if I work 20 years, I'm gonna get fully funded health care until I'm Medicare eligible, and then it'll be $400 a month for me. And that's paying that for them, and that is more than any of our competitors do in the local area, because they're all self-funded, because they have over 300 employees, and they're able to do that, except for St. Andrews, they have a private health insurance. And they're probably still on that only because they can't go back at FEMA for 4 years once they move from it.
Well then, finally, Steve, then, because that point is, something that is, it's a pretty solid point, and so I actually think it's more important that we reduce the spouse and dependent, coverage instead of the 5 years. Because
Yeah.
5 years probably is going to be less impactful than reducing the 100% coverage of dependents and spouses. Whereas I think that would be much, much, more gainful for us on, this kind of, this possibility. But yeah, 25.
So y'all want 20-75 then, 20 years and then 75% as opposed to down to 50?
No, I think we should keep it at 25 years.
Recommendation to the full commission too, whenever,
You mean after we,
after you decide.
Hash it out.
Right, yeah.
alright, well then, alright, we got a lot of stuff to think about and we still have some other
Items on the agenda.
things to get to.
And the last slide, let me just show you that real quick. The next steps, we have to provide the scenario to the actuary. 4 to 5 week processing timeline, that gets it back to us. If we send it in tomorrow, that would get it back to us on 4/20. So we're going into May if we wait till the meeting, this month. And then we need to, once we get the projection, we gotta review it and identify whether this group has gotta review it and identify whether or not it's where we need to be in order to change the policy and amend the policy. And then propose that to the full commission as well.
I really feel like we need to make a decision here, hash this out here. So we won't have to have another meeting at the end of the month and discuss all this again. There's almost all of us here, Sandy left, but, I don't know, I feel like we need to really cut this down, people. I know it hurts everybody, but we are a very generous organization, we do more than any other, and.
Well, to get it going, what if she submits it as it's proposed and then we do the adjustments to that till the full commission can meet? Would that work?
I think they're gonna have some firm numbers here, right?
Oh, yeah, that, whatever, all this has to be defined in order for the
Yeah,
projection.
Well, then that's a complete commission decision then. That's not something that the committee can
What do you think?
step forward with. That's gonna have to
Can
go.
we make a decision and tell her, go send this to the
Maybe.
actuary?
You're spending money on it, so you want to have the full commission vote. I mean, you technically would make the recommendation out of the thing to the full commission. I mean, you can decide which option you like as a committee and make that recommendation to the full commission.
So,
So we can't send it off tomorrow.
Chiefs.
I mean, that money is well within my purview as the district manager to spend.
I feel like we need to get this done. Do you feel like we need to get this done?
I do.
Yeah.
So it really doesn't have to come as a vote from the commission. It's well under my
Okay, well, then
purview
we
to
just-
spend that money.
Well, we just went from 20 to 25, we spent 40 minutes talking about that, now we're back to 25, so we gotta get that part under wraps along with the percentage, correct?
How about I recommend that you do the 25 and then let the rest of this, scenario 5 stand. We'll get the stuff from the actuary, and with our, finance help, our account help that we're getting now, once we get that in, they will be able to give us an idea of where we need to go.
Cause this will still be before budget.
Yes, ma'am.
Can we move with that,
Yeah,
I can handle it.
committee members?
Go ahead.
and that way we can get this, you can send this off, right, okay.
Okay,
So keep it at 25
yes.
and 50% funding, or just do the 100%?
My recommendation was just to add the
Just to leave it
25
at-
and leave
okay.
scenario
Leave
5,
everything as
and then it
is.
can be adjusted once we
If
get
And it can be
all-
updated yearly, so this isn't, that's what I'm saying,
Right.
this isn't something that's gonna be set in stone for the next 50,000
I
years.
wouldn't recommend that, but, you know, you can do it. I
Yeah,
mean,
cause if it's
that's-
gonna cost us $7,000 every time you do it.
Well, once we get the estimate of how much will this save us, it'll give us a good idea of whether we should go to 50% funded for the employees, for all of it. Maybe the stipend should go down to 300, I don't know, or maybe we're saving enough money.
But we need
with
this to get to that point.
Yeah,
Well,
and I think it's really, no one wants to do this. But as it's been explained to us by our auditor, it's something that we have to address. And to do that in the fairest way, I think is to use the same design that it is now and honor that obligation to the people hired before 2008 that already have probably 20, 25 years here. And most of them, and then make a change. That's my recommendation.
I'm in favor of doing that, changing it to 25 and letting them run with it for the figures and facts, or else you wouldn't have spent all the time coming up with another scenario to try to find that balance, because that's what this is.
all right.
Anyway,
Okay, but just so you don't feel like you're misled later, to move forward, okay, but, I'm still uncomfortable with the drastic change to pension benefits, so ultimately I could move the negative.
we're not, all we're doing is sending it off to an actuary to
No,
get some hard
understand.
figures, and then
Sure.
we're going to manipulate those figures to try to find the most cost-saving and equitable thing to do that's right by our employees, so
Sure.
without them, we have
And
nothing.
there's some merit in that, but again, I would not want you to feel like I misled you.
Okay, that's fine. All right, what's else on the agenda?
Can I just say something?
Yes, ma'am.
The grievance policy, Rainey and I have been talking about that, and I think we need to table that until I have a hard policy for you.
Okay.
She had some feedback about witnesses and a couple other things that were included in the,
Okay, because that would have been item number 4, so without any objection or discussion, does anybody have any?
I would just like to point out one thing. I felt like our grievance probably, what if your grievance is against the district manager? That, I feel like that's not addressed at all.
It goes to the commission chair,
Is that what we're looking at? Yeah. And look, yeah,
that's an employee handbook.
yeah, but. It should be brought before the commission, yeah.
Correct.
Hopefully that would be done.
All right, so does anybody have a problem with me tabling
Okay.
4 for now?
Okay.
All
So
right,
you're gonna table 4 for,
yep, and then the
Not really
next.
table, we're just gonna
Well,
postpone it.
waylay it just
Postpone
a
it,
little bit.
that's-
Number 5, revisions to the district manager's position description for resubmission for applicants.
Even though it's a public meeting, I'll step out, I'm
Okay.
sure gonna
Thank
talk about that, make changes.
You didn't,
I will see you
just say,
folks.
come on, 'cause all it is just me, us finding out changing the description for publication. It's gonna end up in the newspaper, and it's gonna be,
You have to sit
I
right
know
there
it's
and
a public
take it.
meeting, I just want, just in case
No.
somebody had
it's
something to
gonna be,
say.
in the- it's gonna be in the
Anyone say
I
newspaper.
have there were two documents that I sent. One had the edits in red, and the other one was basically the updated position description, changing, the, courts and changing the district manager from administrator and, taking that they live out on James Island out of it. And Mr. Laughlin just gave you some updates, yeah, to that, he gave me that, to the, NIMS and IS.
So apparently what happened, you'll, if you get, call me on the let me. But what happened was, it looks like they've changed the names of their abbreviations for some of these courses. Some were eliminated and, some were replaced with an updated
Edits,
edit, so,
that one.
and I
is the
think
one
you've got
that's going on.
that scanned in
Yeah,
as a
that
slide.
I mean, like, why do we need to have emergency planning for public works? Do we have public works?
Well, that's what our solid waste and waste.
I mean, public works is the town, the county, and the city have public works. That's really not our job. I feel like when I talk to the mayor about this, he thinks that we don't need to do any of this. That it's the job of the county, the city, and the town, and the PSD shouldn't be required to do any of this.
Any of what?
Of this, these classes and all that.
Oh, the NIMS
Yeah.
is emergency preparedness, definitely need to
It's
do
all
that.
Yeah, yeah. But you'd think firemen would know about that, that's what I'm thinking.
They do, and the firemen are.
I feel like this whole program was set up for people who don't have fire departments or the city and town and county. And I don't think it's really set up for PSDs. That's the way I feel about it. Because we're gonna do whatever the county tells us or the town tells us what to do, right?
Not the last time I checked.
Well, David isn't here, you wanna speak to that? He's our director of safety.
Certain elements of the NIMS compliance are actually required by FEMA for us to even be able to get one. If you were to take out certain elements, 102, 271, 8 of the district manager's job in different positions, it could hamper us from getting money going on. Most of these classes are not very difficult classes. In regards to your public works, we provide sewer service, therefore we do fall under a public works entity. I don't think it's unreasonable to expect that, should for some reason you decide to go with somebody who's not knowledgeable with the emergency services side, that they have an understanding of the public works side. As far as the other classes, most of them are not very difficult, and they're really just on the basis. I will caution, I was aware of the changes. I was not asked about the changes. However, I will state, we, and Chief Seagull, Deputy Aaron, the district manager, we discussed before, there are some changes I have proposed. Before it was 700A, you had to have 700A. Well, the problem is they updated it. So we would take the A out, the difference being that 700 PW is the public works. The 700 regular is more for emergency response. So the district manager would need to have the PW.
I just feel like in a job description, you need all this. You just need to say, you have to take whatever you call this group. You don't need to list all this in a job description.
Yes, ma'am, you would. I mean, otherwise you wouldn't know which ones to do.
I read job descriptions all the time. You know, since this job has come open, nobody's ever listed all these things. You have to take all these classes.
That's maybe a fault on your side.
Well, all you just need to say is, you need to take these, whatever you call these things. Emergency, safety, whatever.
That's-
It's sort of a general.
That's exactly what we've done.
But you don't have to list the classes, you just have to say,
How else would you know? If somebody said you had, I'm not trying to be argumentative, if somebody said you need NIMS
you
classes.
don't need it in your job description. When they get the job or you interview them and hire them, you say, okay, you've gotta do this. But when you're writing an ad for a job description,
They shouldn't
Oh,
be
it,
in the ad.
it probably won't be in that.
yeah,
Oh,
it doesn't need to be an ad. Or-
So, but, all right, so you're getting an advertisement in a news publication confused with the actual job description. I don't care what kind of job I'm doing, I wanna know as much as I possibly absolutely have to know.
I feel
They
like
do
need to
have to
know
have it
specifically
within
what
18
classes.
months of acquiring the position, so that we're not in the position that Sean just brought up, of not being able to get FEMA this.
So,
It is.
I think she just and that, correct me if I'm wrong, I think you just got the,
Oh,
you
okay,
thought we were
yeah.
gonna put all this in a big old freaking
Yeah,
newspaper thing
yeah,
and
yeah.
scare
Oh, no,
people
my-
away.
I thought,
But-
now it needs to be accessible to them though, because.
Absolutely, yeah, and then if you want detailed accounting of what this job entails, please go to our BAM, and they put our website on just like anybody else.
Which I would
Just like
say
what-
most of, I mean, if I was applying for a job, I would request
Right.
a copy of
And then, yeah, 'cause the first time around that we did this, we spent over $8,000 on advertising in various places with the constraint of, you have to live on James Island. That to me was ridiculous, and I'm glad if we're gonna take it out, or at least I like to think we're gonna take it out. That was one glaring thing, and then you can also structure these, you know, we know what we need, what are we giving the applicants? You know, how does this sound appeasing and pleasing to you to want to be a part of our team? That's in the description of writing the actual ad, I believe. But yes, whatever the requirements are, yeah, I mean, we're gonna,
Whenever we post a position,
yeah,
we also, hang the position description out on the website for people to look at it.
It's been,
Yeah, and that's exactly why all of these details make sense to be included, because I totally understand why, Mr. Engelmann was saying, that needs to be told that you will have to take these classes, that you have to do specifically these things.
So this is what the district manager, who has to complete all these.
and this, in the packet, that was distributed in your materials for this committee, what they did is that the changes that took place are in red, and that's how you know what was altered and what was not, so you don't have a copy of that. And then this, thank you, Battalion Chief Engelmann,
Here,
what are you?
here you go.
What kind of chief are you?
Deputy.
What are you?
Deputy.
Deputy. Ooh,
You get demoted.
I know. I demoted you, I'm sorry.
It's all right.
I'll learn one day. But, so did y'all read over all these?
yeah, I looked at,
Is everybody okay with this?
Yeah.
I'm glad we got rid of the typewriter part.
Thank you.
Yeah. Shouldn't you
I
just call it
keyboard
keyboard?
and miss
Mondo, Abacus.
You used to have an adding machine and all kinds of stuff. Some of the old 500 job
10-digit
descriptions.
calculator.
We were thinking
Alright, so if this is the description that will be accompanying the ad that needs to get perfected, now let's talk about where y'all would like to advertise. I understand that there is a professional group that I left the acronym on my desk, it's, I'm reaching some kind of, I don't know, district administrators group or something, I don't know what you call it. A public service thing, that, and then our local publication, which is the Post and Courier, and maybe the state newspaper, and kind of keep it in the state,
All
as
of
opposed
these
to all
are
these
sort of,
outreaching places.
I think that makes total sense.
What do you, let's do
If- If we post it with Post and Courier,
If
it
it's
will
the
go on
Monster.
Monster,
Mhm.
so it'll be national.
But that wouldn't require us to have to then be doing ourselves, paying more to do national publication or site, because Post and Courier.
Post and Courier, they have an agreement with Monster. and
No, I know,
Post-
that's why I'm saying, so that won't
So-
cost us more, is
No.
why that would, that'd be fine. I'm not opposed to someone, from out of state applying for the position, I'm just, again, budgeting, and not
Right.
having to do unnecessary, like, advertising of our position.
And I would suggest that the ad have a confidential email that,
I thought we talked about sending it to the lawyer's office.
I don't, whatever you
I don't know
want
who
to
talks
send
about
it,
that.
that's,
I thought Chip.
but
was on.
I don't think it should come to the district, I think that
No,
that's.
I don't either, and I don't want it in
And
the,
when we talk
mail
about
it
it
in by the United States Post Office, we're
back
still
in
waiting on a
August, I
$50,000 check
suggested
in my office right now,
getting a
so.
PO box for it, but
I think email
Email
it
is the
to
way-
the law firm, see if we can make arrangements with you all. And I would suggest too, they send a resume. That's how most people do it. You send a resume.
Well, the last time, wait a minute, because every time you borrow the lawyer, you're gonna be paying the lawyer's fees to be looking at all this stuff and take care of it. No
We're just
offense,
asking
sir.
them to
So-
collect it.
But from the last time, we had it sent to here to addressed to a committee, chair, I do believe, or committee, somebody.
It was to
It was-
Mr. Platt and Mr. Loft.
That's what I
Mr.
thought.
Platt and Mr.
Yes,
Loft.
it was the four of us who were on that committee and looked at the resumes that we received.
So I mean, I can designate an email to have them all sent to one place, which will be fine with me.
That's what I suggest, to where there's an email that they can reply and send their resume.
Our IT person could just give me a different email, right? Probably.
I don't know, I would have to ask him, probably.
Well, we would have that designated only for that, the only place that email would appear.
Unless there's
would
one of
be
the
in there.
commissioners that wants to get it, and then we wouldn't have to set up an interview.
I would be totally more than happy to have my email available. I do not think I would be then harassed or anything. And then I can share with the committee.
And then
Is there a
also-
general one like human resources at JIPSD or just?
There is an HR at JIPSD, but then that would be coming to me.
I
Normally
don't know why I
this-
wouldn't have a problem with that.
No, I don't have, don't either, but normally in an executive search, it doesn't go through the staff. Cause I could look at it and go, oh, I don't like that one, I'm not gonna send you that one. I'm not gonna do that, but it's a possibility.
Well, so I could just use my regular email, we wouldn't have to create an email then?
Marilyn Clifford at
Clifford M at
JIPSD.
JIPSD.
You're the,
is regular.
chairman, you should have it come to you.
I don't mind if they come to me, that's fine.
And I would say as soon as you get them, you should just forward it to the rest of the people on the committee.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
How long is this gonna be?
The what?
The ad gonna run for how
What do
long?
they usually, what's the deal for the Monster and Post and Courier?
It makes, if we're gonna put it in the Post and Courier or any newspaper, it makes sense to put it in Sunday's paper and Wednesday's paper. Those are the 2 days that jobs get highlighted in the newspapers. So that's what we did with last time we did.
2 months, 1 month, what do you think? What's the deal? Is there a deal? You get a special rate at certain, so many days or anything?
We got a special rate because we went to 6 different publications. And some of them had,
Was it just published once or several times?
we had 6 different newspapers put the ad in the paper.
In Monster?
Monster, it was on Monster, it was on Career Builder, it was on ZipRecruiter. But it said mail the
Yeah.
resume in, and, that must have been why we didn't get them, or they came to the PO box and somebody sifted through
I
it.
tell you, when I see that, I don't wanna go buy a stamp. I don't do it.
Right.
Yeah, I can email you something, but I'm not gonna mail you something.
Alright, well, the gist of tonight was just to, if everybody has reviewed this with the noted changes, we can we can get the fine tuning of how long to run the publication, what kind of numbers we look, I just don't wanna spend another $8,000. You know, I just,
I think we can get a nice looking ad for Wednesday and Sunday for 2 consecutive weeks and Post and Courier.
but would you mind, would you could
And
check that out,
probably only
please?
spend about maybe between 1,500 and 2,000.
Okay.
If it's a box ad, a good size one with color.
Oh, we don't need all of that, we just need, put this thing in there.
Alright, so is everybody okay with the
Yeah.
description that was sent to the committee
Yes.
members for the revisions?
Thumbs up?
Alright, does anybody have a problem if we adjourn this meeting?
No?
I'm gonna need to get Sandy to sign that plea.
Okay.
Wait, first, how long we're gonna run this ad?
So we're gonna hash that out later, tonight's primary was to get the changes to the description to make sure that that looks right. We're taking it step by step instead of trying to do it all in
You
one shot.
know, we screaming about money, but, and we spending,
We're not even talking about that right now, we're talking about
well, I'm
this.
talking about it,
I already have an agreement with ZipRecruiter and I have we could always put it on ZipRecruiter, and then Indeed and Monster and all of them pick it up. It usually doesn't matter which national one you go to, the rest of them pick it up and advertise it too.
Do y'all ever do just Facebook employment?
We have done that in the past, and I'm not sure why we stopped, but we're gonna be doing that
I
again.
tell you what, we're looking for jobs, by the way, for James Island Outreach, and we were getting nothing, and I stuck it on Facebook, and wow, I just couldn't get over it. How many people have applied through Facebook, it just kind of blew me away.
If I might though, you do present a different problem if you're gonna post on Facebook, because of the way the applications will come in.
What was that?
The way the applications come in
I
through
know, they
Facebook
do
is
come in kind
entirely
of
different.
funny, and what I do is I have to almost cut and paste, and I send it to this, I'm not I do the Facebook page, but I don't do the job search, so I have to forward everything that comes in. But I'm kind of impressed with what we've had come in. And whoever's doing your Facebook page has to send it to HR, and then you have to go back and basically they send you a resume, and then you have to send them a job application through the, or whatever you do.
Right.
But I'm impressed by what I've had come in, and good quality stuff, some of them aren't too good, but a lot of good quality people, and it doesn't cost us anything, right? Or, yeah, it didn't cost me anything.
Put out there that we're hiring in
Yeah.
that position.
Alright, well, we'll look into all that, I just wanna make sure that everybody's good with the description, yes? I'm calling this committee meeting to an end,
I
but
do
you
need
still
to
need
get that
Sandy to sign them.
proposals back.
Oh,
Okay, that's right. Gotta give her these back. Blue.
Sean,
Unless you want to.
I'm kidding.
Alan, I got yours.